You don't remember the moment you were born, and yet, somewhere in that darkness, you began. Not as a body. Bodies exist before thought, before memory, before the idea of a self is even possible. So when, exactly, did you start? And here's the part that should unsettle you. Scientists and philosophers have been arguing about this for over 2,000 years, and they still don't have an answer. But what they do have is something far more disturbing. In 1953, a 27-year-old man named Henry Molaison had a surgery that would change the history of neuroscience forever. Doctors removed a small piece of his brain to cure his epilepsy. The surgery worked. The seizures stopped. But something else stopped too. Henry could no longer form new memories. Every morning, he woke up with no idea where he was. He was still 27 in his mind. Forever. Without memory, he still had a personality. He still laughed at the same kinds of jokes. Still preferred certain foods. Still had the same quiet, gentle way about him. He had no memory, but he still had a self. So if the self isn't memory, what is it? Escalation. Here's what most people get wrong about identity. We assume we were always us, that there's a continuous thread, a single, unbroken story, running from birth to right now. There isn't. Your earliest memory, whatever it is almost certainly false, not slightly distorted, not a little inaccurate. Research from the University of London found that most people's earliest memories are entirely fabricated, often constructed from photographs they were shown as children. You took an image, and over years, you told yourself it was something you remembered, something you lived. The origin story of yourself is, in all likelihood, a lie you told yourself so well you believed it. But this is where things get really strange. Developmental psychologists have a term for the period before about age 2 or 3. They call it infantile amnesia. A black wall, a void in your autobiography. You were alive, breathing, laughing, crying, experiencing the world, and you remember none of it. The you that existed in that time, completely gone. You cannot access them. You cannot speak to them. They are unreachable. And yet they made decisions that shaped who you are right now. The neural pathways carved in those forgotten years, built by a mother's voice, a father's absence, a moment of fear no one ever knew you had. Those pathways are still firing, right now, in your brain, shaping the thoughts you think are entirely your own. And this is the part almost nobody talks about. The you that exists right now isn't even the same you from 7 years ago. Your cells have largely replaced themselves. Your opinions have shifted. The things you once loved, you may now find embarrassing. The fears you carried may have quietly disappeared. At what point did the old you die? And when exactly did this new you take over? There's no ceremony, no notification, no moment where you looked in the mirror and thought, something fundamental just changed. It happens invisibly, in the dark, without your consent. There's an ancient thought experiment. You may have heard of it. A ship sets sail. Over the years, every single plank is replaced, one by one, until no original material remains. Is it still the same ship? Philosophers call this the Ship of Theseus. For 2,000 years, it was treated as a fun intellectual puzzle, an abstraction. But it was never about ships. It was about you. Here's what neuroscience has slowly, quietly begun to suggest, and what most people are too uncomfortable to sit with. The self is not a thing. It's a story. It's a narrative your brain constructs moment to make sense of the chaos of being alive. It stitches together fragments of memory, sensation, and interpretation, and presents them to you as a coherent you. But the narrator is not the story, and the story is not the truth. Psychologist Dan McAdams spent decades studying what he called narrative identity, the idea that we don't discover who we are. We author who we are, continuously, in real time, based on what we choose to remember, what we choose to emphasize, and what we quietly decide to leave out. The version of you that exists right now is your most recent draft. It is not the final one. And here's where something interesting happens, because this cuts in two directions at once. On one hand, it's terrifying. If the self is constructed, if there's no fixed, essential you underneath all the stories, then who is responsible for your choices? Who suffers? Who deserves love? Who exactly are you punishing when you hate yourself? But on the other hand, if the self is a story, then the story can change. If you are the author, then you hold the pen. Every person you've ever admired who completely reinvented themselves, every addict who got clean, every coward who became courageous, every broken person who rebuilt from nothing, they didn't find a new self. They wrote one. Closing. So, when did you become you? Maybe the answer is, you haven't finished yet. Maybe the question itself is wrong, because becoming isn't a moment. It's a process, ongoing, quiet, relentless. The child who cried in the dark and no one came. The teenager who decided what kind of person they would never be. The adult who looked in the mirror after something shattered and thought, that's it, I have to change. All of those were you. None of them are you anymore. And all of them are here right now, inside whatever you call yourself today. Henry Molaison died in 2008 at age 82. In his final years, he didn't know his own name, didn't recognize his face in the mirror, couldn't remember a single decade of his life. But everyone who knew him said the same thing. He seemed at peace. Whoever he was, wherever the self lives when memory is gone, it had not disappeared. It had become something quieter, something underneath the noise of autobiography, something that had always been there. Maybe that's what you are too. Not your memories, not your story, not even your name, but the one who remains when everything else falls away.